Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Tuesday, August 6th, 2024. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. The previous session, a huge high range sell-off. We did see a intraday low that developed, a strong low where price was able to bounce back intraday, but it left behind a massive range for the day. Over 200 points of range yesterday, 225.5 points to be exact. And when you have a range of that magnitude and then you close near the center of that range, the odds increase that you could have an inside day that develops, and with a current downward trend as the primary direction right now. Now, the other thing that could happen again is, while we could have a downside continuation overall, do we get a bit of a relief rally in the meantime? From the pivot high on Thursday to the pivot low on Monday, that is a massive range and a huge impulsive move down. If price can bounce back toward about 53.60, that could open up a midpoint retest. That's that level right there, 53.60, and that could provide a new key range for this market. Now, you have several days before that target needs to be reached so that it can become an impulsive move. But even if that target is reached, even if we do see a little bit of a bounce over the next several days, we still have more downside likely to come. This could be something that materializes over the next 2 to 3 months, or perhaps even more. Again, additionally, the fact that we've seen price take out the previous quarter's midpoint will begin to open up the previous quarter's low. We could be looking at a 49.60, 49.65 target down below, and that would be the previous quarter's low right there. And once that level is reached, maybe perhaps there's a bounce back up, but a failure there starts to open up much lower levels. We also have the 400-point market structure distributions that are very important. A failure at 5,400 here will lead to a continuation toward that 5,000 level. That's right there. 400-point distribution has been in play. And again, if that level is reached here soon, that could provide a little bit of a bounce opportunity, but a failure down the road could open up 4,600 on the low end. So today here, any pullback could be a selling opportunity at the moment, and any price above 5,300 right now currently being defended as this market continues to build out here within the previous session's range. We still have likely more downside ahead overall, but we could get a little bit of a relief rally in the near term. We take a look here at the NQ. Very similar price action here. The previous session, over 1,000 points of range, 1,039 points, which that range for a one-day session beats any of the ranges that we saw during the 2020 COVID sell-off. The highest range we had during that period of time was about 1,035. So this one was even bigger. You can see that we did see a little bit of a strong low that developed and an intraday rally, or at least a relief rally back up. This one is seeing a bit of a failed high and a retest of the year-to-date VWAP from below. Again, it would be very beneficial for price to snap back to that midpoint right there. Almost got it overnight. That would provide, again, a new key range that could give us some great levels to work with and future targets as well. Now, again, this market continues to remain highly bearish at this moment, and more downside could be ahead overall, but we could see some further development within the previous session's range until proven otherwise. So can we go get that target here? That's 18,534. Sometime over the next several days, that could give us a nice key range midpoint, and we could be working with a new key range up ahead. If we take a look here at crude oil, this one's down about 0.75% at the moment. Failed new high and dropping through the previous session's midpoint. This one hit new lows yesterday. Didn't quite have the massive range that we've seen in the broader markets here, but it did have a pretty decent size range overall, did drop to new lows. Reached the 71.67s, and really 71 has been major support for the year. If you look back here, that zone right there is about 70.50. The low of the year is about 69 and change, and that's been about the lowest lows we've seen this year. Here, reaching prices below 72, can price react and bounce back up, or do we see a continuation down to take out the lows of the year? The fact that we've seen a failed new high develop this morning, and we're already through the previous session's midpoint, would suggest further weakness in the near term through the previous session's low, and we could be looking at a continuation toward those 70.50 pivot lows here from earlier this year. Looking at gold futures down just shy of 0.5%. While the market was rallying, or dropping rather, this one didn't really see a rally quite at all. It did bounce off the lows. It looked very similar to what we've seen in the broader market. Had a very similar day here, nearly a 100-point range yesterday, which is fairly significant. 2480 is a major market structure edge. You had 2280 on the lower edge, and that's been your 200-point distribution. And as of right now, falling away from 2480 would suggest another midpoint retest back toward the center of the range. 2350 has been about that zone. Now overall, this market does continue to see an uptrending environment here, but you really got to push through that 2480 level in order to open up that next 200-point distribution above, which puts you into the 2680 zone. As of right now, seeing quite a bit of selling pressure in the current pre-market move, and we could be looking at a return back toward 2350 down below. Looking at the YM here down, it's up on the day, but kind of off the highs of the session. A little bit of a pullback, and back down we go. This was a massive range in the previous session, 1,200 points of range, and this is the third straight day of high range selling price action. And we've seen this thing drop away from the FOMC key level above 41.20, 41.241. That level was sold heavily. We've seen major selling pressure and back to year-to-date VWAP very quickly. We could be looking at a continuation downward toward 38.110, followed by what could be a push to the previous quarter's low. Right now we are sitting precisely on top of the previous quarter's midpoint. A failure here, and you start to open up the previous quarter's low at around the 37.430 zone. So again, that could be about where we're headed up ahead. As of right now, inside day, that could continue to persist given the previous session's wide range and the close near the center of that range. We could be looking at back and forth price action today with a downward bias. Now looking at Bitcoin recovering modestly here after the previous day's meltdown. This price here was down over 20% from the previous session's close. The Friday close was way up here, and we've seen price gap down and drop tremendously, hitting 49,365. That's a significant move here for this market, and something we were kind of looking for, not all in one day, but we were kind of looking for in our trading room, given the lower highs and the recent lower lows. We mentioned off of this high we could be looking at new lows below the previous pivot low up ahead into 50,000, but it happened all basically in one day as 20% came out of this market just like that. Today, very similar to the ES, the NQ, and the other equity futures, we're seeing a price inside day range right around the center point of the previous session's range. That could continue to persist here as the market kind of builds out a bit. Can we get a midpoint retest here? That'll be significant. You really got to bounce pretty high to go get that midpoint somewhere in this zone here, 61K or so. And there's several days. Maybe by next week there could be a little bit of a rotation up. That would give us a new key range. If not, we're going to continue to melt down until we find a strong low that this thing can bounce off of. So right now, inside day, holding on right now near the center of the previous session's range, could be range bound with a downward bias. ETH had the worst day of all, down 26-27% at one point there yesterday. But what was impressive about both ETH and Bitcoin is they held their major market structure levels. Bitcoin holding 50,000 and ETH holding 2,200. 2,200, a significant key level here that we've had on the board for a while. It was able to hold that level and bounce off of it. We're now seeing some digestive price action here near the center of the previous day's range. Again, very similar to many of the other markets we've talked about this morning. We could continue to see kind of a range-bound price action with a downward bias here. And like the Bitcoin chart we just mentioned here, perhaps there's a bit of a bounce back that can happen here that gives us a new key range to work with up ahead. For right now, we do have this previous key range that's in play, and the 100% downside target could still be below at 2,000. So right now, still a downward bias overall, but today could be range bound until proven otherwise. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this develops here heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.